All right, Brent, here we are. It's our first crossover SUV touring all season tire test of 2024. It's our first test with our brand new Alfa Romeo Stelvio test platform, right? We have a dedicated crossover SUV touring all season tire test vehicle. We have a couple fresh faces that have never been tested before, but other than that, it's the best of the best in crossover SUV touring all season, right?
I know. I'm looking at the lineup here, just reviewing, and like you said, it is the top of the survey category for the tires that are ranked. We want to know how they differentiate. Our customers want to know what the differences between these tires are, and we're going to be able to find out, because now with our new test program and our methodology, we don't have to compare just 3 tires. We're comparing, in this case, up to 8 tires, 8 different tires. So we're going to get a broad snapshot of, like you said, the best of the best.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a tire here for everybody. No matter what you want, there is something that'll do. So let's get started on the road rides.
Yeah,
right?
I want to check out some road rides.
This is the Bridgestone Alenza AS Ultra. What are you feeling so far?
Little bumps, little cracks are a little more apparent than maybe I would expect on a luxury sporty SUV like the Alfa Stelvio.
Right, it doesn't mask a whole lot of what's going on the road surface. You kind of feel most things, right?
Yeah.
And noise, it makes a little bit of a, I call it a warbling sound. You call it a what? Make that sound on camera for me, please. Yeah, that sound.
Got a little bit of a cyclical tone variation. They can sound like a warble.
On the on-ramp and the off-ramp, it kind of weights up in your hands. You can feel that it kind of builds a little bit of, cornering traction, and then it increases kind of, not linearly, but progressively in a way that you would expect. So I would say that steering is a pretty high point for the tire.
Yeah, great.
Continental Cross Contact LX25. It's nice on the road, right? It's a nice blend of controlled and composed. In terms of noise, there's some interaction with the roughness of the road. I notice a little bit of a reverberation over impacts, but over the smooth stuff particularly, it's pretty quiet.
Yeah, there's not a lot of tonal variety, not a lot of harmonics.
And in terms of what you would want from a premium tire, the steering is pretty nice too.
It's on the sportier side of the crossover category, so if that's what you're looking for, then this could be a good choice.
Right. The Cooper Discoverer Enduramax.
A little stiff.
Big hits, you feel them.
Yeah.
Little hits, you feel them.
Yeah.
You kind of just feel everything. If you're really looking for a cushiony, pillowy ride, this isn't really the one for you.
It's done a pretty good job of soaking up some of that resonance that we will get on the cross-cut concrete. I mean, right now it is completely silent.
Well, we're not moving right now, so.
Okay, that explains it. But it does a great job of soaking up some of those resonances.
When I turn the wheel, I get to where I'm going, but it's not just like, yes, I feel every millimeter of this travel. So
not inappropriate for category, but it's got some work to do compared to the others.
Here we are on the road driving the Michelin Cross Climate 2. It's very composed. It just feels like it leans towards the sporty end of the spectrum, the controlled, the composed, the taut end of the spectrum. Does a great job controlling the vehicle's body motions. It never feels jiggly. It never feels out of control. It's just one and done, concise, and that's it.
Can be considered comfortable.
Right.
It's not ultimate cushion. It's how does it feel overall? What is the ride quality?
All right, moving on. Let's talk about noise. It's decent.
There, it has some noise.
Right. And also, one thing that it does better than most other tires in this test is it eliminates any kind of reverberation over impacts. There's no impact ring, there's no buzzing in the cabin. All right, you're
Steering.
At the wheel. Yeah, tell me about steering.
It feels good, especially at this 65 at this highway speed. I like it. It's quick, it's precise, it's weighted nicely.
Yep, has a nice, strong on-center feeling, doesn't feel like it wants to wander. Pirelli Scorpion AS Plus 3, man, is it good. If you're looking for comfort in terms of ride, this is it. And it doesn't give up any composure to get it, right?
That's what I wanted to say. It's like they found the magic formula here.
Right. I will say, all right, so it can't be all 100% sunshine and rainbows. Over the biggest impacts and over very repetitive impacts, there's maybe just a tiny bit of kind of quiver of the tire, just a little bit.
It's a hair.
You'd have to be looking for it to find it.
Which we are.
We are, yeah. That's what we do here. So
even on the coarse concrete, it's nice and quiet. It soaks it up about as well as you could ask the tire to.
Right. Sure. And you know what? I love the steering too. It just feels right. It reacts, but it's not like super pointy and direct to where it feels like it's hyperactive. It's balanced. It builds weight as you add steering input. It's just right for a touring tire. All right, we're on the road with the Pirelli Scorpion Weather Active, and I'm pretty excited about this one. So we have the Scorpion AS Plus 3 and the Scorpion Weather Active, both from Pirelli, both kind of in the same place, but the Scorpion Weather Active is an all-weather tire. It's 3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded. So we get to have this direct comparison of kind of the pros and cons between the two. And man, this one feels really good too, but a little bit more performance focused maybe.
Just a little bit.
Right?
It's like they said, hey, we like this. I want it a little sportier. So just dial
Right?
it over here just a little bit more.
Yeah, still really nicely composed, still rounds over bumps very well, but it's just a little bit tauter.
Noise is still very good.
Right.
Again, maybe slightly higher, a little more tread interaction.
A little bit.
The steering is, again, a little bit lighter and maybe feels a little bit sportier because of it. It's a little quicker ramp up in response,
Right.
Which I personally like. I think a lot of other people would as well.
Second to last tire, the Yokohama Geolander CVG058. It's nice on the road.
It is good. Just back there on the larger bumps, it was well cushioned.
What do you think about noise, Brent?
Does a good job staying even, mitigating any kind of tones. Noise level isn't too high.
The steering is nice. It feels direct. It feels like it does what I want it to. It's just, it's not quite as sporty and responsive as some, and it's not quite as, perfectly matched to the vehicle characteristics as others. Now here we are on the Geolander CV4S, which is an all-weather tire, so it's 3 Peak Mountain Snowflake branded. I'm feeling a little bit more of those kind of traditional trade-offs that you would expect for an all-weather tire versus just a straight touring all-season tire. The ride isn't quite as refined. Some of the big hits hit a little harder. It's just not as polished as some of the best in the test. And kind of a similar story for noise comfort as well. There's a little bit of a that we call sha that you can hear in the background over some of the coarser surfaces. It interacts a little bit more.
Yeah, you just hear more of the tire doing its thing down there.
What do you think about steering?
Speaking of that, kind of more of the same story, what you would expect from that perhaps slightly chopped up tread pattern.
Chopped up, softer tread pattern.
Yeah, things are a little lighter, maybe slightly less precise, not as composed and sporty.
The tires in our test were mostly tightly grouped in dry objective capability, which isn't uncommon when comparing products from the same performance category. The Cross Climate 2 set the shortest braking distance, but also the lowest lateral traction figure by a small margin. The Scorpion Weather Active was something of an inverse from the Michelin, delivering the highest lateral traction and braking distances near the back of the pack. The Discoverer Enduramax and Alenza AS Ultra were at the bottom of the list for dry traction. While their skid pad performance could be considered mid-pack, the 9-foot difference in 50-0 braking between the Bridgestone and the test-leading Michelin is a significant figure in the dry.
Nice. So in addition to those purely objective metrics, the 50-0 braking and lateral traction around the skid pad, we also wanted to incorporate kind of a maneuver to see how the tires put all those metrics together, to see how they're going to perform in an emergency situation.
Right. So to complete the emergency lane change that we've developed, each tire enters the first set of cones at 45 miles an hour. We then have to abruptly swerve to avoid whatever would be, in our lane into what is essentially oncoming traffic. So then you have to swerve to make your way back to your original lane of travel. And in addition to whether or not each tire can, simply do that, we also keep track of if we hit any cones in the process when we're doing the maneuver.
Yeah, and it's not just about, did you miss the cones? Did you make the lane change maneuver happen? We're also going to evaluate it subjectively. How did it feel when it was in transitioning from lane to lane?
The Cross Contact LX25 and Geolander CVG058 both passed the emergency lane change test with ease. Nice. And back, and all right, look at that. Passed with no problem. The Continental's steering felt more eager and alert, but that strong front end also engaged the rear axle. The rear wanted to rotate a little bit before the traction control stepped in and locked it down. The Yokohama, on the other hand, felt more stable and planted, essentially drama-free from beginning to end. See, that's what you want in an emergency maneuver, is just no drama, just stable, and does exactly what you want it to. The Discoverer and Duramax and Geolander CV4S completed the maneuver successfully, if not quite as easily as the top two tires. Both felt a little softer in their response to initial steering input, but otherwise were composed and capable. Still more push on the front end than I would like. I'd like it if it, was more authoritative coming back in the opposite direction, but it felt pretty good on that, initial avoidance, the initial input. The two Pirelli tires felt remarkably similar in this exercise. They also completed the lane change successfully, feeling tossable and eager to change direction, but also planted and stable. Yeah, all good. Rather uneventful on that one. Michelin's Cross Climate 2 reacted positively to the initial steering input, but it struggled to recover and return to the original lane of travel because the front axle quickly saturated in a stubborn understeer.
Input understeer, slow recovery.
And then understeer on the way back, too. They made it, though. Ultimately, it had about a 50-50 success rate in cleanly completing the maneuver. The Alenza AS Ultra had the most difficulty navigating the emergency lane change. There was some delay in its response to inputs, requiring a bigger turn of the wheel to initiate the change. There it is, and back! And straddled that cone, which is a fail. Throughout the exercise, it felt uncertain, as if it wasn't as firmly planted and stable as most of the other tires.
With the group of tires we assembled, our test was essentially an evaluation to find the best of the best in the crossover SUV touring all-season category, so we had high expectations for their wet performance. As it turned out, the top performers were all very tightly grouped in both 50-0 braking and lateral traction. There was less than 5 feet separating the top 5 tires in braking, and with the Cross Contact LX25 earning the top spot. The Cross Climate 2, the two Yokohamas, and the Scorpion Weather Active rounded out the top 5. The Alenza AS Ultra required an additional 3 feet to stop, with the Scorpion AS Plus 3 another 3 feet back from there. The Discoverer and Duramax lagged significantly behind, requiring over 10 feet longer to come to a stop than the next closest Pirelli, and a significant 21 feet further than the top-performing Continental. The story was similar on the skid pad, with only 0.04 of a G separating the top 7 tires, and the Cooper trailing by a comparatively large margin.
While ultimate lap times likely aren't a deciding factor in the crossover SUV touring all-season category, the objective numbers can provide a picture of each tire's overall capability, which can make all the difference in a tricky situation on the road. Here again, the Cross Contact LX25 set the bar, distinguishing itself slightly from the rest of the group. Strong traction, strong steering response, everything's balanced, it's stable, just a tiny little bit of understeer, just does it all, right? The Geolander CVG058, Cross Climate 2, Geolander CV4S, and Scorpion Weather Active all performed at a very high level as well. Here's the Yokohama Geolander CVG058. It's balanced, it's tossable but planted, it feels like a willing partner. Michelin Cross Climate 2.
It does everything at a high level, like objective-wise.
It's not fun to drive in the wet, right?
It defaults to understeer, it won't combine inputs, especially on corner exit.
Yokohama Geolander CV4S.
Yeah, predictable, good traction, easy to drive, easy to maximize.
Pirelli Scorpion Weather Active.
This is a little, I don't want to say edgy. It's just a little,
that sounds...
Yeah, it's harder to maintain that cornering traction, that limit traction.
The Alenza AS Ultra and Scorpion AS Plus 3 were capable, if not standout performers, and the Discoverer and Duramax struggled due to the relatively limited traction available. Bridgestone Alenza AS Ultra. Ready, go! What do you think?
Not too shabby. It's balanced in its traction delivery. It's just a little low in its traction levels.
Right? Here we are, the Pirelli Scorpion AS Plus 3.
Oh yeah.
And it is, what can we say
Feels
about
great.
it? Right?
It feels really nice. Everything is precise and predictable and playful and responsive.
The traction isn't as strong as some of the other competitors. Next up, Cooper Discoverer and Duramax. The front end, you know, you try to change directions and it just slides for a little bit before it slows down enough to have enough grip. You can feel that the rear end wants to step out quite a bit, and then traction control just locks you down and you're not going anywhere. It's acceptable, but man, there's a lot better out there.
It's the odd one out right now for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
That was a cool test. Like we said, it was a shootout basically of the best tires in the category. Not only that, but we got to compare a few tires that aren't necessarily always considered direct competitors. On top of that, we compared the Pirelli and Yokohama, their all-season versus their all-weather counterparts in the same category.
Right, and you know, maybe that results or the results from that comparison might have turned out the way people expected. You know, the all-season tires were a little bit more refined on the road, right? Like a little bit quieter, a little bit more comfortable. But the real story, I think, is the all-weather products were so close.
Yeah.
They were so good, you know, just barely behind, that maybe by the time we add in the winter testing component, they might surpass their all-season counterparts.
Yeah, but don't forget about the Yokohama Zoolander CVG058.
Proper product name, very good.
Really good. It was really close to those. And that's a tire that's not always in the same conversation as the Michelins and the Pirellis.
Right, like we said a bunch of times, this was a best of the best shootout, and that Yokohama, it belongs there. And because these are all very good, highly rated tires, they were all, you know, pretty closely grouped. There were a couple exceptions, you know, places that we would have liked to have seen some improvement.
For sure.
But in reality, you know, they're close, and it's going to be really exciting to see how things stack up once we add in ice and snow testing in early 2025.
Yeah, we're not done yet.